welcome again to another PC podcast series. Today we'll be talking about something very interesting, but also something very controversial. Here at Post-Courier Online, topics trend everywhere online, and this is one of those very, sensitive ones. But we'd like to talk about it today, and I have a special guest with me, someone who's worked for a long time in this particular topic and the issues that surrounds it. And that's the issue of sorcery, accusation-related violence. A sensitive one that I know most of you have grown up around, especially the issue of sorcery in our cultures, the many cultures we have. So today I have with me G-Bustin, the founder and CEO of PNG Tribal Foundation. Gary, welcome.
Thank you. It's good to be here today. Thanks for having me on the show.
Before I talk about the topic, I'd just like you to introduce yourself and your organization, and what has it been, how long has it existed, and what is it all about?
I think mi start long 1948 tumbuna papa blomi bin kamlo PNG.
Tok pisin now.
Yeah, tok pisin. Mi aspless. Giaman white skin. Mama blomi karamilo groka, but mi come up lo Southern Highlands lo bush straight. One time all last tanget. All poro blomi all last tanget. So time mi say tok lo Port Moresby mi say tok. You play no sabe lo walking fire one time bamboo na walking buna ro, but me one la kanaka mi sabe lo this la something because me come up straight lo bush.
Yeah.
So all gonna ting blow me and me say kisim lo this la awesome childhood blow me. One time all young bla mangi mi plus around shooting abus subim wara long all big bla riwan about na plenty walk me la walk him. So long time me got 21 Christmas, me got this idea lo start him one bla balus him can pundan lo wara na save him life lo planti man na Mary. So me no got money, me no got me no sabe lo flying balus too. Na me no sabe lo walking NGO or kind something. But me got this la dream man. O same na plenty time me say story one time all young bla man na Mary me plus me say talk him all. No can let him one bla down him dream man blow you because one bla time me one size lo you na me got drive bla dream man. But now I'm come up na I'm save him life lo plenty man na Mary na I'm Samaritan Aviation I'm stop lo ECP.
Wow.
So
okay. You start him.
Yeah, me start him. Me karim samla line come one time me na me plus start him one time but them dream man blow me. Time me got because one bla time me stop lo one bla island lo medeng. Now one bla boy all been karim kam lo me na all been cut him leg blong one time bush knife. Na leg blong bagarap no go through na close to all need lo cut him na rouse him leg blong but me look sabi of because no got access lo medical care. So this time me got 21 Christmas me thinking suppose you got one la balu can pundan lo wara can save him life lo planti man na Mary who sat all stop outside long or trangu hap. So sem na me start him this pla but kiss him 10 pla yeah lo kiss him sabe lo flying balus na start him organization na buying balus na karim kam lo
you sa flying balus too?
Me original bush pilot.
Good luck.
It's like walk lo sorcery accusation related violence and me no start lo this blah. Me start lo flying balus. Yeah.
Now lo namin lo you flying balus. I mean before you go back lo balus one me sabe sem family blue strong blah connection lo Papua New Guinea. You know Utah Sol. You know Utah Sol born le.
Yeah.
All together collectively.
Yeah.
If you can story lig lo this la just lo man lo understand him.
Yeah.
Passing blue.
Okay. Long story blo family blo me. Tumbu na papa blo mi G-Bustin and bin kam lo 1948 kam lo America and kam na like walk mission. So ting lo go lo Southern Highlands now talk by you no nap go because all no sabe lo white man na no good you kiss him time no good na kind something but making strong bla talk na all karam go so go on top na now time you go on top lo Highlands plenty through all basabe lo G-Bustin tumbu na papa blo mi been starting this la walk lo school na clinic na lo tu tripla one time that's all been karim papa blo mi one time all 5 pla brata na sister blong one time all man na Mary blong also all married them all karim all come too. So all get that family blong mi pla put him 320 years of service inside lo Papua New Guinea start lo 1948 me am 30 years but papa blong mi na mama blong mi na anti-blomi lanida Bustin ol plantimem lo kaupena lo Southern Highlands. Em stapon la teacher 50 pla year. So
Wow.
long bla time plant ol kisim education, former Governor General em kisim education long anti-blomi.
Wow.
Kain walk. So it's em belblomi em stop on time Papua New Guinea me giaman white skin that's all.
Very true, very true. You mentioned you started Samaritan Aviation, and obviously that would have given you the opportunity to go to so many places through that transport mode of an aircraft. So then how do we connect from providing that very integral service to the people who really needed it the most to now the issue of what was witnessed or what was seen in terms of the issue of social-related, accusation-related violence? Just if you could connect that.
Yeah, that's quite a leap.
Very much so.
Yeah. So what happened, I started the Tribal Foundation in 2009, and I was the president of Samaritan Aviation at the time, and we were looking at doing medical supplies and things like that. So the first thing we did is we put 96 hospital beds at the maternity ward in Palm Gen. And then we were doing more medical supplies, and then I started looking at gender-based violence and how it's holding Papua New Guinea back, because 50% of the population is not safe, and they also are generally not free to contribute to society. So we don't know how many amazing women there are who have been held back, and we don't get to benefit from their brilliance and from what they could produce for the economy and for our country and all of that. So I was thinking from the perspective of what's the stumbling blocks for the country to proceed. And so we decided to make a film on gender-based violence. It's called Senesim Pasin, and it's the most watched film in Papua New Guinea. Because for more than 10 years now, we've been taking it all over the country in villages, schools, communities, businesses, everything. But when we were shooting the video, we were up at Betty's Lodge up in Chimbu.
Yes.
And she said, this is my story, because her father told her, if you leave the village, you'll just be a Pamuk Mary,
Wow.
because I think I'm number 3 pikinini blow, number 2 wife, or kind of sen.
Okay.
So all like em stop na lookout in peak na story lo mi plus how go lo school na come up business mary na story lo life lo So story finish na talk, but you plan neat lo talk lo anti blow me name lo Augusta. So mi pla talk okay karem come. So mi pla film crew mi pla all get us sit down inside lo lig lodge long fire stop long fireplace place call you sabe. Na this la mary one bla lig mary stop lo video lo mi pla Senesim Pasin na story lo mi pla also how all shooting talk sanguma long na first time blo mi lo harem this last story, because lo time me come up lo Highlands mi play got witch doctor na kind but mi play no got osem glass man na glass mary na shooting talk sanguma long.
And one year again?
1972 mama blo mi karamilo groka.
Okay.
So lo
So mi talk lo you play meeting Betty, yeah?
Oh, and that was 94.
94. Okay.
No, sorry, that was 94. It was 2000. Wait, me thinking again.
Lo walking film, yeah?
Yeah, when we did the film was 2014.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
2014. So disla Mary story na all get mi pla ay wara lo story blo disla Mary, because one bla like him ground blong so all shooting talk sanguma long na mama blong na liglik pikinini blong tripla Mary ta sol sinda no disla ground, because man blong been die. So one bla man got plenty pikinini man like him disla ground, so talk sanguma, so all tighty lo bush house blong all putting fire underneath long na two all cooking bush house. So bagarapin Mary no go through. Na story of him how no sabe how, but come outside the house no got one blast stop, so jump go to river. Na river karme go. Na close to die, na all get a skin blong bagarap lo fire. Na all come na all try lo kill him long time all find out there's stop lo one bla house sick. But one bla been talk sabe long or all back come, so walk about go all get a lo chimbu long house long anti blong long Betty. So story lo this story na bagarap him ting blow me na mi talk I one kind passing ya no passing blow yumi lo PNG. Osem yumi got ting long sorcery na sanguma na kind something. But this time go extra one. na mi foul na display em kirap im ting blow mi na mi plus start lo work lo disla start lo. Before that, even we worked with Kapare Lineata, that case in supporting women's groups, Women Arise, and things like that. But this was the first personal experience. It's one thing to hear something out there, but it's another thing when I tell you my story and you bapilim. So that's where we got started on really focusing on sorcery, accusation-related violence, and now Tribal is one of the leading organizations in the country working on this issue.
True. So coming back on that belief in Papua New Guinea, and I can also speak on behalf, and I know all of you out there also have this experience. I grew up in a household, a single mother from a village in Rigo, where the belief is there. And we were taught as we grew up that there is good spirits and there are bad spirits. Then there is Christianity and there's the devil, of course, and the bad side of things. And also we also see in modern day literature, film, about, they talk about witchcraft and wizardry. So this is more or less a global sort of issue, the beliefs, but then no one's pretty much documented anything. No one's documented like we see in the Harry Potter films, dust coming out and someone being, morphing into something. No one's actually documented anything like this. But in our cultures, it's really strong. And I can't deny that conversation and what we're having right now. And I learned that when you walk, you can't throw whether you're eating a sugar cane or you can't throw it up on the side of the track. You have to pick it up and walk. And it's so funny because it translates all the way to now me as a grown adult that's working in a professional, industry where we have to talk about facts and everything. Yet when I go to a house cry just this week with my cousin, we end up sitting there, we spoke with the one talks, we chewed betel nut, but when we got back into the car, we collected all our rubbish. And this is in the 21st century. This is in Papua New Guinea that's 50 years old now. But these beliefs are so ingrained in us. So then that comes back to why people are being hurt and how people are being killed, tortured, burnt on the stake for things like this. While we also believe that this person, and I'd also make mention that in the coastal areas, it's an issue that exists behind the curtain. Whereas now it's sort of moved up into the highlands, but also recently coming back to the coast, it's now being something put at the forefront, put right out in the open. In an age where mobile technology stopped, all can kisim picture and a video, horrific, bad videos of things that are going on. So like me talk to you, one man who said, go past na, you champion him. One of difference flow this la, because me play, got belief law place na. Then all man go now, like kill him all man, all kill him all now, talk, all walking past in here, but me don't know look him one play evidence, lick law this la. One of ting blue law this la.
No, I'm good pla talk, plenty also talk. Okay, sango mo em through something. Na talk long me em like blow you lo, suppose you like belief lo this la, or suppose you less lo belief lo this la, me no got talk. When I was growing up in the highlands and I'm running through the bush with my friends, me man block kake sugake. So me sa kake na me like throw my lo side and all boys talk, no, get So even me, I had to carry my
even you.
I had to carry my sugar cane, with the already chewed with me, and then we had to bury it somewhere and whatever because em passing. So me must be an passing. So all these things also. Me got slag yaman white skin, but me sabe long passing a ting blong yumi. But what's happening now is that's not people are using old beliefs to profit for themselves. That's what's happening. So I can give you a perfect example is this case that we just got passed, the first case on the Glassman Act. So it was an amendment to the criminal code that the Tribal Foundation wrote with Governor Byrd. So our legal team, we spend a long time writing the amendment called the Glassman Act with Governor Alan Byrd, and then was passed in Parliament unanimously in 22. Okay. And so the reason why we did that is because the problem is the accusation. People are going around making money or benefiting some way off of the accusation. So whenever you see a case, there's always someone who's a beneficiary of the case. There's always. It could be the Glassman or Glassmary who got paid to go in, or it could be somebody who wants the person's property, or it could be someone who wants the person's like they want revenge, they don't like that person, whatever it is, but it's just a cover. It's like a way people were not getting prosecuted. So if you had an enemy and you wanted to get them, then you could just say em sanguma, na you can start me looking more wakabat lo riva na looking more some kind action then you kirap him ting ting, and everyone has got this belief like you were saying where you have to take your beetle nut with you, your skin and all of that, because so em pase na ting ting stop. So then what happens is these people have figured out that I can benefit from it. So this first case that someone was prosecuted just for the accusation that happened a couple weeks ago was from the area in Mumeng up above Leh in Morobe province. And this is an example that can be laid across almost all sorcery accusation related violence cases. And this is what happened. The husband of this family, he did gold mining. So he had his own small operation and he made some money because him hard work. So him got house kopa. But all Narpalano village all got bush house. So all jealous lo this la house kopa blong all. Na one black kirap na him talk. I think all mas wakim sanguma na all go pass na mi stop behind. So then one black man, James Mon, shoot him this la talk sanguma long Mary blong this la man. Mama got 5 pla pikinini. Na marit lo this la man say walk gold. So shoot him talk sanguma long Then all kisi one black prayer warrior come. Prayer warrior all buy him lo 254 kina.
Wow.
So I go and I sit with these glassmen and glassmary. I ask them their stories, their beliefs, their everything. And I went in the police cell and I talked to her for 2 hours. And what I found out was, con Mary, but kisi money, na karim money na go. Once walking or action or disla Mary sound. Then all rausim disla mama na all katimem lo machete na die. Now 4 pla pikinini or 5 pla pikinini all nogat mama na 1 pla man nogat Mary. Long one something because jealousy blong sambla line. All looking house blong all na all jealous. All like go na walking gold operation blong all yet do na kisim nice pla house. Nogat all like bagarapim. You say passing lo imi lo PNG
jealous,
line blow jealous. So all jealous lo disla na all walking. So mipla tribal foundation mipla look sa yosem mipla need lo panasim disla something lo shootim tok sanguma long husat you like shootim. So this bla glassman act them tokosem. Suppose you shootim tok sanguma la 1 bla na all kiss him heavy. You can go lo calabus. Now, 2, suppose you shoot him talk sanguma, nothing you walk him offense. You can go lo calabus lo. Suppose me talk sanguma, me can go lo calabus.
Okay.
Now, suppose you glassman or you glassmary, you can go long calabus lo walk him this la walk. So first time mosem 1 bla man lo or Mary lo PNG or go lo calabus lo shoot him talk sanguma because shoot him talk tasol. Na bin go pinis. Now all bagarapi Mary. No stop. No holding bush knife. But now stop lo calabus.
And name blame one again?
James Mon. James Mon.
Name stop how long? One been penalty. What was his penalty?
5 years penalty. So I was just at the Justice Department today, and they said I think that's that's a good start, but we need to get very serious penalties for these. And then the glassmary in that case is coming up for judgment. Here in the next couple of weeks, so it's up to the judge what she decides to do. But this is a very important landmark case because we have 85 people we've arrested already that are going to be caught up on this law. So this is the first case coming through the pipeline, but the other ones are coming behind it.
So then we come to this. So you said the glassman, and then now we have this other term that's been popping up, the prayer warriors. And this is where now, from people meddling with cultural beliefs to point score, they're now meddling with Christian beliefs. And what are your thoughts on this? Because it's been a growing trend, and especially up in the Highlands, you have mass groups of people who claim to be of the faith, who claim to be spiritually, in tune with, God, etc. And they know what's what they can see. Just your thoughts on that. The other, evolution to this very serious issue.
Yeah. So it's anything they can use for confusion. So just like people have a foundational belief in sorcery and they use it for confusion, then the same thing they're doing with churches, where people have a foundational belief in church and God because, all the missionaries and everything, then they also use that for confusion. So this prayer warrior was a perfect example of that. So I went and I said, how did you learn to do these things? And she said, Mary came and taught me when I was 13 years old how to pray, and I can pray better than anyone else. I know what's going on.
Which Mary?
This Mary, Jesus' mother.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I'm Catholic.
Okay.
So I'm not true Catholic, but
Yeah.
also yumi toke twistim. Yeah. So she said, Mary, Mama Blood Jesus, come na skuli milo haulo beten. Time me got 13 Christmas. So me got this last special way misa wokim na ol narpla mana Mary ono napsave and mitasol misave. So I said, how long have you been doing this? And she said, like 15 years. So I was just thinking while I was talking to her, how many people have died. So Meriam osem yumi tok sambla also twistim custom. Na tok mi glass man or glass Mary. Meriam twistim ting blolotu. So I'm talk me prayer warrior. But I'm no true Mary blolotu. I'm just con artist. I'm wokim disla I'm like isim money na I'm go na wokim action blong em. Yaman something. She said she buried some stones in the water in a bucket and then threw them in the river, and then that's how she could see who the sorcerer was in the village.
It's almost like she's a sorcerer herself.
Yeah, exactly. These Glassman and Glassmary are the evil ones, and that they're going around acting like they're the ones that are saving people from the evil ones, but they're the evil ones. They're the ones who, they use custom to trick people, and then they benefit. So you always have to look who's benefiting in the case. And you will always find someone that's benefiting.
Wow. So then it comes back down to these helpless situations that people find themselves in, especially the victims. It's so bad. I mean, the videos we see half the time, as the mainstream, we can't put most of everything that comes out. And they're so horrific. Where can they get help from? Because it's such a traumatic ordeal, life and death situation, when you have the entire village against your actual existence. And you hear most of this, you see most of these stories that have been told time and time again. How do they survive?
It's, Miss Altrangulainia, because they now all know got ground. And these are people who live off of working in their gardens. So they can't go to the city and get a job. So then they're now, all sutim tok pinis long also, all bakarapim name long also, all non upstaplo village. Next time one bla mano meri die, all come back long all again. So then they become refugees in their own country. We call it internal refugees. And it's estimated that there's 30,000 internal refugees in Papua New Guinea just from sorcery accusation related violence. So we deal with them all the time, and we've got to stop this because it's just a few people benefiting that's damaging. You think about it, like if a mother, this mother was accused. Now all of her children have been displaced from school. What are their opportunities? And now, Osam, they're always going to be talk. I'm pikini blasanguma. So it disrupts a whole community, and now this whole community, they have a black mark. There's the young boys who chopped them up. They have to live. They have to live with themselves, and we're gonna get them too. So they're gonna be arrested, and so it's just one blood, dry blood, head pain, something that's completely unnecessary. It's just happening off of jealousy, and once it happens, it takes like this case. We took carriage of this case in September of 23. And we just now got the first judgment. And then hopefully we get the second judgment shortly, and then we still have to go get the perpetrator. So that'll be another 2 or 3 years. So you see, and then you have to look after these children so they're safe and make sure that, they aren't attacked. Because what happens is when you hold the perpetrators responsible, oftentimes the community will attack the witness. They will attack the victim, and they'll say, "Hey, you pla walking wrong something, manem go stop lo calabus." But he should be in the calabus because sem walking wrong. But then the victims are often the targets from the community, so they have to be hidden, and it's a huge process. It's not just like a simple, thing where you call the police and then they handle it. And then no, we have to support every step of the way, paying for postmortem, paying for fuel for police vehicles, paying for caskets, paying for food for victims, paying for our lawyer to go and sit with the police and help them with their files, then bringing the victims back to court, back and forth to court from their safe house, wherever they are. And dry pla wok. Because one bla like yet. So that's why we need stiff penalties. And this isn't something that's custom, so we can easily shut it down.
Sure. And so when we come back to our most unfortunate victims, what can they range from? Are they just all women? I mean, most of the videos that come out show women, but are they women? Are they men? Are they children?
I would say they're about 85% older women, and then probably 10% men, somewhere in there, and then about 5% is children. So we have some children. We've had some
children.
cases.
What are some of the? I mean, I know we don't show things like this, but what are some of the worst cases of children that you've come across?
We had this poor little girl in Western Highlands province that someone finally reported after years of torture. She had been tortured 3 years. Her femur, which is the strongest bone in your body, your upper leg bone,
Yes.
had been broken. And she had been scarred and she had been cut with machetes, and then the skin had healed over the top of the scars, so that there was a wound underneath that wasn't healed, but the skin was over the top.
How old was she?
She was 6 years old. And so you look at that and you say, how is this child a sangoma? They can't even read or write or, whatever. Not that sangomas have to read or write, but all no sabe lo kasamol pikinini. They just know how to eat and play and, things that a child does.
And what did they accuse?
What happened was the auntie didn't want to look after the child who had been dropped off by another family member, so she wanted to take her anger out on the child because she was having to raise this child that wasn't hers. So she accused her of being a sangoma so she could torture her and no one would do anything about it. So that went on for, can you imagine the life of this, since this child was 3 years, from 3 to 6, she was tortured. And then every time we put out a story, there'll be some person that's like, yeah, but sorcery is real.
Yeah.
And we're like, you aipas, you sim head play you. Mipla no tok lo sangoma, mipla tok long, displa pasin blong, bagarapi mol mana, meri husatol innocent. And we have never in 10 years worked with one person who was a victim who was actually doing sorcery. That's why they used to call it sorcery-related violence. And I said, no, it has to be sorcery accusation-related violence. So I'm the one who put the A in SARV. Because we've never met someone, mi aspleso, mi pla baisabe, because we look after them for 3, 4 years, 5 years, sometimes 6 years. So mi pla sabe longol. So we know, saposol pasin blongol, sangoma ba mi pla sabe. But we have never met one person that was actually trying to do sorcery. They just all mama lo gaden or like wok gaden blongol, but one bla sutim tokam blongol na ol bagana.
If you got one bla message lo toke molman, like if you had to tell them something about these beliefs, these comments that you spoke about, I've seen them a lot in most of the stories that we've run as Post-Courier newspaper and Post-Courier online. What would be your message to these people? Because I feel like we have to break the protocol of the questions here, to talk about that bit, the message to everyone out there. And they'll be also in the comment section of this podcast.
I would say, like, for example, when we put the story out about this mother who was chopped up by machetes, why are you more concerned about protecting the idea of sanguma than you are about the mother of these 5 children who was chopped up by machetes because she had a nicer house? So if you want to hold on strongly to the belief of sangoma, you have every right to do that. No one's saying that it's real or it's not real. And like blong you. But you can't go and chop up someone who's innocent. So let's start looking at the victims here and caring more about them than we do about some story someone told us along the line about this rock or, that bird and grasplo piseno, kind something.
True. Let me come back now, Lo. Let's come back to the state agents. So within every village, we know we have councillors. Within every village, there are rural police, auxiliary police, etc., etc. And then these people now have to carry out what is the laws of the land. But then you have the situation where they either take control when an entire mob in their ward or so per se, or the policeman is from that particular village but he stands back and watch. You've seen that happen. Are they helpless because they're outnumbered, or they also believe?
It's a mixed. It's a mix. We've dealt with some really good police, like the detective Regina Patmo in the case that we've been discussing in Morabay. Amazing. We also deal with some very corrupt police who take snake bail. We had someone just recently in Chimbu province that the woman was decapitated because she was accused of sorcery, and they took 3,000 kina snake bail and let her out. Let the perpetrator out.
So snake bail is like
snake bail is like a bribe.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's not like, it doesn't come through the proper channels.
Yeah.
So the arresting officer, whoever just gets the money, puts it in their pocket,
And forgets about it.
and then he lets them out. So, but we go after them. So we work very closely with the IIU. So that person's going to be arrested. So if they're watching you come lokot now, because this woman had her head chopped off, and you let the person who chopped the head off out. For what reason? Because you got 3,000 kina. So what about the children? What about the justice from the family? You losing thing. But there's a lot of good police officers. There's a few bad apples in every. So we work closely with the police. We support the police. Many good police officers, but sometimes they're just outnumbered.
So then, apart from you, I know there are another group or other champions out there, or people who have been fighting this fight. And there are some we've been reporting on as mainstream press, and those who partner with you. How big is the network of people who are fighting against these SARV cases? How big is it, and how committed are these people? And what are their stories?
There's really kind of two groups in my mind. There's the groups of people who are doing this out of passion and doing it because they want to see a difference. And then there's the group of people who are involved because they want to, get notoriety or money. Because, now that we've been working on this for so long, people are all talking about it. So people are starting to put money. And then you have the people that are on the late bus that show up and they all like walk money. They don't know anything about it, but all of a sudden they're the experts because they see there's contracts and those kind of things. And it's really difficult to get the support to the frontline people. But there are some really, really good, dedicated frontline people that risk their lives. Some really good safe houses. We tribal employees, a number of human rights defender that are on our payroll, and they tell us when these cases are happening. They don't do it because they are getting a good living out of it. They're doing it because they're passionate about it, and then we just support them a little bit. And so it's not like tribal's the only one that's doing something in this. We just took it on ourselves because of our work to make the film and to write the law with Governor Byrd and follow through, because we have the ability to work from Parliament clear down to the village. But there's people all along those different places who are also doing their work, and we're a team. We support them. We work closely together whenever we can. But there's also a lot of mousewara.
Yeah.
When there's some politicians, whenever the camera comes on, bang, they're there. But when the camera goes off, we never see them or hear from them again. And then there's some who, they're steady and they're working, and you can call them, text them and say, we're dealing with this, and they'll do something about it. So there's a mixed bag.
True.
Yeah.
So, and then obviously people out there, the first thing everyone does in Papua New Guinea about organizations and the work you do, they are all thinking now, you can see money lo walk this la walk.
Yeah.
Who's that you buy him stuff?
Yeah. No, that's a good point. So I go overseas and raise most of the money. We get a little bit of support from the government, but I would say in the amount of money that we spend versus what we get from the government is about 10 or 20%. The rest comes from our donors and our private corporate partnerships to do it. So I would rather not do this work. I hate it because it's every day I'm looking at tortured people and dealing with, having to deal with corruption, and it's not something where it's enjoyable work. The only enjoyable part of the work is seeing progress and seeing people held accountable, and also seeing people that wouldn't have anyone help them, and they say, because of you guys, we're able to get some help. So for Tribal Foundation, we've put way more money in than we've gotten support. We need more support actually to be able to keep up with the demands. But you always have people that talk, the keyboard warriors or whatever, that sit on the grandstands, and we don't worry about that. Most people are very supportive, and they see the work we do, and there's literally hundreds and hundreds of lives that people talk, like Tribal help save my life. And
tell me a good story beneath all the dark, the gloom of how so horrible this issue is in the country. Tell me a good story of someone who came out, survived the ordeal. What are they doing now? What's their life like? Do they have a family now? Are they still scarred by these things? Like, what's a success story from all of these bad things?
I have a really good story. So I was driving out of our compound and our office, and this guy was standing on the side of the road, and he said, "Hey, Boro, me like tok one time you." And I didn't know, he was dirty clothes, looked like a guy from the streets. So I said, "Okay, I'm going out, but go sit in my office. When I come back, I'll talk to you." So anyway, he told me that he was a successful fish farmer in the Highlands, and he had 700,000 fish. He had a deal with the national fisheries, all kinds of things, and his relatives got jealous and accused him of sorcery. And so they destroyed his fish farm and nearly killed his family and everything. And so he came down to Port Moresby, and he was trying to get justice, but he didn't have any money or anything. So he was living with a one-talk in a squatter, settlement close to Bomana. And then he would go back and forth, and then one day a police officer got drunk and came with his machete and said, "Mi panem dis la sanguma," because he knew the story of this guy who was a businessman. And so he chased everybody out of this little settlement and burnt the house down, the little shack down, with everything this guy had left in his house. And then this guy was sleeping in front of the mosque in Hohola on the street. He didn't have anywhere to sleep. And then he had come to our office, and I said, he told me his story. So I said, "Okay, we'll give you a job cleaning." And so he's cleaning, and I could see pretty quickly, this guy's actually sabe man. So then I gave him some more work. Long story short, he is now our champion in getting people arrested and prosecuted for sorcery accusation related violence. And he's back to having a bigger fish farm than he had before he came to us. Amazing. So there was nothing about this guy that had anything to do with Sangoma. It was just jealousy again. But he's back, but he is so passionate. Like, I don't have to tell him, go do this and go do that. I have to slow him down sometimes because he'll, we call him the sheriff, because he'll go to people and say, "Hey, I'm with Tribal Foundation. I will arrest you." And okay, bro, take it easy a little bit, So
beautiful.
He's an amazing guy, and one of the many stories of, a good outcome.
That's a beautiful story.
Yeah.
So then I think I'm coming to the end of this podcast, and thank you for those of you who are still with us. Me and Gary, G-Bustin from PNG Tribal Foundation, beautiful organization. So this message now, I'm asking you to give to the Glassmans and the Glassmarys, more or less, let's test their powers.
Yeah.
And you've probably tested their powers most than anyone else, let alone. What would be your message to them? Oh, one em diglig tok blongol lo. All man must look him whether power gat or no gat.
Yeah. I think by me talking about sem, you got one bla life bla you na no can you sim lo bagarap him skin blongol man na Mary. You sim life bla you lo come up him good bla something. Because you by got skills na talent bla you can walk him some bla kind walk na add him value lo country. No can use him skills na talent blo you lo bagarap him life blang all man na you go na you kiss him just like kai but you kai na bel blo you no napsin down good because you save or same you one bla murderer you one bla man who sat all walk him torture long tok blong you or one bla Mary kind of same so lose him this bla passing no can gaman him all man na Mary you can got good pla life, but you no can walk him just like I'm passing no good. You bagarap him country blow me pla. You bagarap him name blow me pla. Online lo outside talk, oh long Papua New Guinea also cookie mol Mary. Because lo walk blow you yet. Blow walk blow me pla PNG me pla good pla line. But you walk around na kissing money na bagarap him skin blow ol man na Mary. Lose him this like rubbish passing. Because me pla by whole of you na you by go lo calabus.
Now, Gary, I think lo experience blow you. Ikat narapla, I think we haven't mentioned that bit, and that's the other one of social media and the use of videos. I'd also like to ask you quickly, are those who take these videos standing by on the side, taking these, are they as responsible as the guys who are literally chopping up people in front of them? Just your thoughts on it. I know you're not a lawyer, I know you're not government, but just through your experience, are they as bad as the ones who are perpetrating?
I can understand taking pleasure from the torture of other people. So I wouldn't say they're not actually holding the bush knife, but they're taking some sort of sadistic pleasure from, it's like a sport to them. Someone's getting chopped up and they're enjoying taking the film. So that says what kind of person that they are. But they also are helping us because we take the films and then we identify the perpetrators and it's right there on the film. So I understand when the whole community's been, excited and is coming after someone, it's hard to stop a whole community. But to take part of it and film it and share the film and, like it's somehow you're reporting on this gruesome, on the pain of this person. This is a person. And mama blo one bla. Na you hamamaslo em kisim just like kind heavy em tok one him lo em you one him kind man na you one him values blo you em one him. So it's not a sport. This is someone who's I hate seeing the videos and I have to watch a lot of them because we get them sent. We see which cases we have strong enough evidence to prosecute. It's sad to me when I testified it to Parliament a few years ago. I said what these people are doing to each other is worse than an animal, like a lion in Africa eating a gazelle or something, it will kill it and eat it. But these people, they torture them for sometimes 2 or 3 days in ways that are just horrific, with their private parts and everything. And it's not because, they're getting some kind of a sadistic pleasure out of the pain of someone else. So then what does that say about you if you're that kind of person?
Very true. And thank you for ending on that note, and a very bad note at that, especially in the description of what's going on. But Gary, thank you so much for the great work you and your team have done, and thank you for being on the podcast, one of our second podcast, but a very serious topic and a topic that needs to be spoken about more openly. And I thank you for also distinguishing between what's tradition, what's cultural beliefs versus what's actually pure jealousy. What's actually someone gaining out of this? What's actually a scary growing industry, per se, if we may try to look at it in the description. But thank you so much for joining us, and I hope we will meet you next time to talk about the other good work you've been doing, from Samaritan Aviation and heading to the other issues of big interest in this country. And we might also have to talk about the larger issue, which is violence in this country, gender-based violence especially. So,
well, we're doing a lot of things, leadership development, our Citizen PNG program. There's a lot of good things, and I don't like to end on a bad note because I'm an overall optimistic and positive person. And the good thing is we're starting to get everyone to focus on this and talk about it, and people are starting to go to jail. So we're starting to make progress, and it's people like you. I mean, with the column that we worked with for a long time that I wrote for the Post-Courier, and all the awareness that you're helping us do, even having this podcast and helping people think about it. We're making progress. So it's not all negative. There's some really positive things, and I think that's a good note to end on.
Yes. Thank you so much, Gary, and thank you everyone for joining us for this second Post-Courier PC Online podcast series. And we will see you next time when you join us for another interesting guest, just like Gary. Thank you so much.
Thank you.